You're right. It's all
Okay, I'm going to call our village board meeting for November 1st, 2021 to order. Roll call, please.
Natalie Fry.
Here.
Bill Lillum.
Here.
Bill Random.
Here.
Chris Elmer.
Here.
Aaron Moran.
Here.
Sam Kaufman.
Here.
Aaron Hitzberg.
Here.
Okay, next, confirmation of open meeting compliance, public postings, official notices, online availability. Caitlin?
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Wanakee Tribune on Friday, October 29th. The final agenda was posted at all 3 village posting locations on October 28th, and the final agenda and packet were made available online on October 28th.
Thank you. And for those that don't know it, Roberta's here. Tribune comes out on Friday now versus Thursday. So just letting everybody know that. All right, next we have consent agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled, or I'd look for a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
By Aaron, second by, was it Sam?
Yep.
Second by Sam. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, under presentations, presentation of ACEC award to Village of Wanakee for library construction project.
Hello, I'm Ben Piotr. I'm with Ayers Associates. I'm also a resident of the Village of Wanakee. We've been involved with a variety of environmental and redevelopment projects throughout the village over the years. One of the more recent ones has been the redevelopment of the former Wanakee alloy site into the current library that we all visit. On October 1st, I was able to attend the Wisconsin chapter of American Council of Engineering Companies award banquet. This was a combined banquet celebrating engineering excellence in the state of Wisconsin for the years of 2020 and 2021. They weren't able to hold the 2021 last year, so this was a combined effort. And this banquet recognized the Village of Wanakee's contribution to engineering through the redevelopment of the Wanakee Alloy site, and I just wanted to highlight a few things for those that may not be familiar with the project. It was incredibly complicated. There was a lot of environmental issues at the site. One of the key elements of it was intermingled mercury contamination mixed with PCBs, which was a complete challenge even for the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA got involved with an emergency response action to come out and clean up and address these issues at a cost of nearly $1 million, at which point the village was able to negotiate an agreement with them and take ownership of the property. The site buildings were then demolished, the environmental issues addressed, the soils remediated, and the current 40,000 square foot library was constructed on there. We were able to assist the village in obtaining approximately $650,000 in grant funds to assist with the project. And other partners on the project included KJWW, now IMEG, Snyder Associates on the site civil side, and OPN Architects. The project was completed in August of 2019. And I'm pleased to recognize that the project was awarded a Best in State award. And I've got a plaque to present to the village on behalf of ACEC. So appreciate our involvement with this project. And again, it's great to see something like this take over on a site that looked like it was before. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next we have public comment. Public comment on the 2022 Village of Wanakee budget. Caitlin, did we have people turn in?
I believe that there is a presentation from staff first, and then we'll open it for public comment.
Perfect.
All right, this is a very reduced version of the presentation that you saw a couple weeks ago. And Renee took a lot of a stab at that one. I'm gonna take a stab at this one. I get the short one. So the process we've gone through for preparation of the budget involves each individual department preparing their proposal. That then comes to the finance department, which starts to plug in numbers, and together Renee and I coordinate a review of those departments' proposals. We receive guidance from the village board, specifically from the village president, who gives us parameters in which to devise a proposal and essentially parameters to live within in what the administration budget puts forward. Our finance committee meets, reviews our policies, confirms those or changes policies, and then the proposal of the full budget along with each department's unique requests are presented, which was at your last meeting. So this budget hearing, or this budget public comment opportunity was added just a couple of years ago to our process. In the state statutes require one public hearing for budgets. However, that public hearing would line up with the same date, same evening on which the village board was expected to take action. Doesn't give much time for consideration of what might be proposed from the public or opportunity for questions to be answered. So we added this additional opportunity that's tonight, with then the final public hearing and board action to be at your next meeting in 2 weeks on November 15th. You've seen this slide before. This isn't changed necessarily unless we have new information from any of the jurisdictions.
So we do not have the manufacturing assessment, but we did on, I believe it was on Friday, we got MATC's numbers for their budget, and obviously they're the smallest piece. And they are showing a 0.89% increase for their budget.
Okay, so that number's probably gonna remain
It's,
4% or so.
yeah, it's very minimal in the big picture of things, but.
So I also like to show, show this, because even though the tax bills are paid to the Wanakee Finance Director, in fact, the village's portion of that bill, at least it was our last year's round, was under 30% of the total portion, remains with the village. We distribute the proceeds by this pie breakout to the other taxing jurisdictions. So the budget proposal had a few key budgetary outcomes. The general fund expenses rose to, let's see, I think is that 10,000, 10 and 12,000? So it's above million, above 10 million general fund expenditure. It went up, we're proposing just below 4% this year, a $415,000 increase in our general fund expenditures. Over the past 5 years, the average annual increase has been over 6%. For the tax rate, the assessed tax rate in this proposal increases 3.47%. That was a target number that we were working with. Our initial guidance from the village president was to advise that we work towards a proposal below 3.5% increase to the assessed tax rate. We also identify the equalized tax rate. That's the fair market tax rate, takes into account our assessment ratio, and that is a slightly decreasing tax rate. The reason I like to show equalized tax rate is because that normalizes our tax rate compared to our fellow communities in the state and in Dane County. And you'll see a comparison with some of our other communities in a moment. The result of that tax rate proposal for the average village home down here in 2022, which is $374,000, the estimated village tax, the village portion, that 28%, is $2,325. That's up from last year's average home value tax bill of $2,222. So just over $100 increase for village purposes. Here again, you have some figures there that you can extrapolate. For every $1,000, the village taxes would be $621, or 21 more than last year. Oh, so as you saw, I gave you a sneak peek to the fact that I zoom in for everybody's behalf. But this chart shows where Wanakee's equalized tax rate fares in comparison to all of the other Dane County villages and cities. We've been maintaining a position in the lower third. So zooming in, this is our, is this our last year's budget essentially?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the most up-to-date data that
The
we
most
have.
up to date. So as you recall, in a couple slides prior, our equalized tax rate actually is going down slightly under the admin proposal, which I believe will hold us still very tightly to the lower third, if not even getting close to the lower quarter within Dane County communities for the municipal tax rate. So the most significant items in our budget, easily the largest portion of our budget is staffing. And I think you had calculated about 60% of our total budget relates to our personnel. The salaries and wages for our staff in the budget proposal has an impact of increasing $134,000. Our health insurance program increases $81,000. You recall that from about a month ago when we discussed maybe more than that, 2 months ago now, our health insurance program. I include EMS and fire because it's important for folks to know that those aren't necessarily negotiable items for us. We are told what our portion is to pay to the district for the village's share, and that cost is then passed through in our budget. So there's the amount increases for EMS and fire. Also, what we don't have as much necessarily control over in this budget cycle is the impact of prior year decisions. So I'd like to note that we had a few new hires last year, or I guess this current year, that were brought in mid-year. Therefore, next year, we're going to feel the impact of those hires for the full duration of a year. So that results in an increase there of $56,000. We were able to add library Sunday hours this prior year. With a full year of implementation, the increase from last year's budget to this is about $25,000. So in total, just those 5 bullet points results in an increase of $363,000. And I mention that because when you think about all of the spending that we do, the millions and millions of budget dollars that we expend, the whole total of that expense increase was $415,000, if you remember from a few slides ago. The meat of that, the vast meat of that, is taken up by these 5 bullet items. So counting paper clips becomes sort of futile when you start looking at the key main items that really impact our budgeting increases. So those are some significant things I want to point out. There's one change that I'm proposing this evening from your last budget. My chair keeps sinking. Do you know that? You see, I'm short enough already, and now okay. Yeah, I'm going down already.
A new chair for the budget.
We'll put that in. If you recall from our prior discussion at the budget, there were some things that were still going to be changing and moving around. We expected open enrollment to cause some tweaks to our open enrollment, health insurance, and benefits. We expected some modifications due to the desire to balance out the impact of the health insurance increase on some of our lowest paid employees. So considering some of those elements and the fact that we had incorporated into the prior budget a $30,000 contingency, we eat up a majority of that contingency and really balance out pretty close to that 3.47 spot. So that's where we sit. That's where we're sitting today with a budget with maybe a 5,000 contingency left. Something in that neighborhood. So I have this one piece of paper that I don't like very much. This is Caitlyn's resignation letter. On 3, we all go, 1, 2, 3. Caitlyn, not surprisingly, has been offered the position of Director of Administration for the City of Sun Prairie. Yeah, right, we're happy about that. Well, happy for her. When I saw that job ad 3 months ago, I'm like, oh, no. Her skills and abilities fit perfectly with this. It's an advancement in more than one way for her professionally. I am not entirely surprised that the city administrator there has plucked her from us. So I'm excited for her. I'm not excited for us, but this is a broken record, you've heard this from me, every time there's a change in people and staff, it requires a pause to look at our organization's design. Unfortunately for me, my pause occurred this Saturday for 6 hours in my office, because that's all all the time I had to think about it. This news came just last week for Caitlyn. But I do have a proposal that I think is going to serve us well. And I'll kind of cut to the chase. We'll also present for your consideration an additional savings from what I've already presented in the budget proposal. So let me walk through this for you. This is our current staffing model, and I'm only looking at administration, the finance office, and the deputy administrator clerk's office. So in the finance office today, we have Renee and 2 full-time staff, an account clerk who is still with us, and then a payroll HR clerk, which is currently vacant. That was Becca Laufenberg's position. She found a job in the private sector. We pursued a recruitment to fill her job as is. We got 2 applicants. And so we did not have a successful process in that recruitment. Not surprised, because we recognize, it's been recognized that that type of position in both the private and public sector are proving very difficult to fill due to lack of qualified candidates. So we sit with vacancy number 1. Vacancy number 2, as of December 3rd, or the day after December 3rd, is the deputy administrator village clerk position. That position oversees what would become a 100% time deputy clerk. That's Lynn, if any of you have met Lynn. She's taken on the deputy clerk role after Lori Helt left earlier this year and has been working 75% schedule. And we're looking to increase that to a full-time position, and then there's a management intern also under the deputy administrator. So that's today's organizational design, a little mini portion of our organization. Oh, executive assistant, that's Kylie. How can we forget Kylie? And she's there serving multiple departments, including administration. Nothing happens to Kylie in this proposed, but to address the challenge with that, with this position here, we're proposing that a separate village clerk position be created under the finance director. So the function of clerk would be under the finance director. It's not necessarily the clerk's department per se, but a function beneath the finance director. And that clerk would have the combined duties of some payroll and finance tasks. This is not unusual in the municipal clerk industry. Many communities, our size and smaller, often see clerk and treasurer duties combined. This is not unusual. We expect that the interest in this position here in Wanakee will be attractive to those in the clerk industry, and we think this will lead to success both in fulfilling the needs of finance as well as giving the appropriate due attention to the clerking function. Under that position is the deputy clerk. Again, that's Lynn. That's the position we are looking to modify to 100%. We're going to recommend keeping it at 75% for a couple reasons. The main one being in the arrangement during which Lynn has been working 75%, we've been successful. The second reason is Lynn wouldn't mind staying 75%. So with those 2 items in mind, I'd propose that. The position of deputy administrator / village clerk then would be modified to address 2 things. One, to still have a primary educated with a master's degree level education number 2 position to assist with organizational management in the absence of the village administrator. Also to assist and lead many aspects of our HR functions, to be a contact for staff. And then, as you recall, a couple weeks ago, I expressed disappointment that my budget proposal had eliminated a full-time communications manager position, which a year ago, you, the village board, agreed with administration's proposal that that would be an aspiration for us as an organization, that will make us better. So what I'm suggesting is that actually become a key component of the talents and skills that we seek for hiring a deputy administrator, and then that task be primary for our deputy. That position would then oversee an intern. We currently only have our intern proposed in the admin budget going through May. I wouldn't expect that to change. I would expect our intern position to end and go vacant at mid-year. So those are the two differences. And fiscally, the current budget, just those roles that I identified in that 2 slides ago, is a $305,000 expense. This proposal reduces that by just over $30,000 to $274,000. I'm recommending this approach to the board. We're prepared. I met with administration team, finance team, and clerk team today to talk about this. We're prepared and ready to make this shift if the board thinks that this is a good approach. We think it is. We think it will serve our village hall function well and the community well, and would be looking for a conceptual thumbs up from the village board today, with the thought then in 2 weeks we would bring a formal organizational designed approval for your final consideration. The reason we're sort of looking for a thumbs up, or at least a nod that we're heading in the right direction, is we could be prepared to approach a process for recruitment even tomorrow with a prompt job ad and an open recruitment process in which we'd field our first batch of candidates within the next couple of weeks. I know what Renee's load has been like in her department since Beck has been gone. I can spend a lot of time telling you about what Caitlyn fulfills in her duties, and I think my biggest worry in this is that we don't proceed with vigor, which other than, if not, would cause harm upon existing staff in trying to fulfill the duties that we're trying to fulfill for you every day. So, wow, I don't know if I took a breath. But again, here's the financial impact. What I would urge the village board to avoid doing this evening is seeing that 32,000 savings as an immediate opportunity to fill or fund something else specific. You're going to hear presentations this afternoon, I assume from several, calling for funding to be added to the proposed library budget. You may hear recommendations from the public to propose additions in other areas of municipal operations. I'd like to suggest that the board take a moment to consider this an opportunity that could go in a number of ways. You certainly have the opportunity to take advantage of proposed budget savings and further reduce the 3.47% tax increase, because I know that's an important, it's important for you in your stewarding of the public dollar to demonstrate that responsibility to the public. I know that's important to you. At the same time, you can consider, I'll tell you that every department, and I have several department heads sitting in here, did not request certain things because they pursued a budget proposal with directed limits and guidelines. I can tell you that if you ask any department head what they would do with an extra $10,000 or $15,000, they know that answer now. And they would tell you immediately what it was that they couldn't accomplish in their proposed budget. An option, if you care to, is to offer that question to all of your department heads, and over the course of the next 2 weeks, find out what they'd have to say. With that, in 2 weeks, we could consider how you might care to utilize additional capacity in budgeting, or whether you care to meet in the middle, or quite frankly, this is what you see today is the administrator's budget. What you're going to be approving is your budget. So if you see fit to fund other things above the 3.5% guideline we saw, that is your policy prerogative. And that's within your consideration as well. So with that, I'll say that the budget process, it's a method of grinding information to a proposed responsible result. And the fact that not every department got everything they sought, and the fact that there's questions from the public that's being proposed this evening and over the course of the process, all is part of good process. I applaud all of my department heads for putting forward information. I applaud the library board. Several members are here for their work and being diligent about the library budget and proposing their budget. Renee gets a ton of credit for running the grinder for a month or so to put together what you see. And with that, I would offer just a quick rule of thumb that for every $10,000 change in the levy, that represents a 0.006 change in the tax rate or a 0.1% change over the prior year rate. So taking that $30,000 into mind, if you just leave that as a savings, that would drop the 3.47 to 3.17. And for every 0.1% change in the levy for that average home, you're going to see a $2 decrease in the tax bill, or vice versa, should you choose to increase the proposed budget. So with that, I welcome public comment. And I guess sorry, Nyla?
Yeah, I have a question.
Nyla, hold on a second.
Okay.
Todd, this is during public comment section, so you were asking for us to give you feedback. I don't think we can give feedback based on our rules.
Well, let me see.
Because of the way it's on the agenda, as you put it during that part and you didn't have it under presentation, so I don't know how we can change that.
Well, I mean, in the past, like last year at this meeting is when we brought up the addition of the public works and the police positions.
I understand. What
Yep.
I'm saying is because it occurred under public comment section, can we as board members comment now? We haven't in the past. It may have been different on the way it was posted.
No, it was
No, it's the
exactly the
same.
same. It's been, we've always put this piece under public comment, and we did have a discussion in the past.
I would note that it's not listed as a technical public hearing. I
You
think,
can't take any action.
yeah,
It's
we're.
not listed for action.
But I would offer that for us to do a good job of budgeting and bringing forward for you the next version of the proposal in 2 weeks, that it would be important for us to be informed by the village board as well in this process of providing comment.
Okay,
Right.
well, I appreciate that. I'm still, I want to be clarifying, I want this to be very clear that during our public comment section, we have not, in the past, given feedback. The public has not commented at this point, staff has commented. Is that different? I just want to make sure we're doing it right.
What I would advise, Caitlyn, you can chime in too. What I would advise is by no means take any action. Take no specific action, take no specific vote. But I would advise that participating in a process of public comment is within your purview to do so.
I
Go ahead.
like Renee's had touched on last year during the budget process, at this stage, with this same agenda language, you guys discussed whether we needed to add a police officer or a public works individual into the budget during this exact item last year. We had a conversation. So it is history for this agenda item for you guys to have discussion.
Right, so
No action, but feedback to staff and direction.
So again, is this different than a typical public comment period during our meetings, because during public comment, we do not give feedback.
I would say this is a listed public comment item. It was noticed to the public that we were going to be soliciting information for this particular item. So it was noticed, so I think it's different than just a general public comment we get from anything on or off our agenda.
Again, I respect that, but it does not say discussion. It says public comment. It doesn't say public, discussion and public comment. So I just want to make sure we're okay with what we're doing.
My advice is that you are. Obviously, the village attorney isn't here, we gave him the night off. But I would also suggest that my expectation of the comments that you're gonna hear from the public tonight, that they would be in hope that, to the extent that they can receive answers this evening, or see and understand a process in which the village board considers what they're hearing from them, I think would be helpful for the public in attendance.
So do you anticipate then, just let me ask this question, so the public is going to be commenting to us tonight. Will we be responding to their comments or questions?
Well, what Renee and I were prepared to do was, to the best that we could answer a question directly, we would. To the extent that we'd need to do additional research, we would take note of the question, perform that research, and either send a memo with answers to the member of the public and to the board with a direct response, or be prepared at your meeting in 2 weeks to fulfill in answering the questions that were brought forward. So,
All right, so what I'm hearing you say is we probably should have this discussion first, right now, or what your proposal is, give you thumbs up, thumbs down. Have the public make their comments, then from there, we will be responding, you guys will be responding, or we will be prepared to respond at the next meeting.
that seems fair.
That, that's our board members, does that seem fair to all of you?
Can you repeat that, please?
So we're gonna, Todd's proposal right now with regards to the changing of the chart. Okay, we're gonna have that to give him a thumbs up or not, whether or not to proceed with that, so he can post for a position. So we'll have that discussion first, and then have the public make their comments. We won't be directly responding to comments tonight. Staff may respond to those, but we'll be prepared next meeting to discuss those questions that were asked tonight. Is that clear? Everybody clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Natalie, your comment, I'm sorry, I interrupted
It's not a
you.
comment, I just have a question. Can we rely on a management intern to take care of the needs that they'd have to be responsible for? Because aren't interns usually here for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, they are. And an internship is a learning responsibility, a learning opportunity, as well as an opportunity to send someone in pursuing specific projects that staff otherwise doesn't, can use that help to accomplish. I don't expect and don't place our intern position in a position of decision-making authority. I don't think operations hinge on intern participation and engagement. It's an augment and a supplement to the regular full-time staff.
Okay, but part of my question is, would we have a person in that position in an ongoing way? Okay.
No, I wouldn't expect that.
Okay.
Our experience with interns has often been one relating to the opportunity that is presented to us by a potential candidate. It's also it's often pretty hard to find interns, so it's often a unique opportunity for both the student as well as the village as it comes up.
Thank you.
And in the proposed budget, Nyla, the intern funded position is not funded after June.
Okay.
Okay?
Mhm.
Okay, as far as Todd's proposal for, do you want to put that back up?
Oh,
For this. My question, so I had talked with Todd earlier this afternoon in regards to this, and the important thing to me was making sure that we still had our human resource functions as part of this. As you'll notice, there's not really anywhere where it says human resources here. And Todd, maybe you can address that point to everybody.
Right, although it didn't say it here either. It is a duty, it's a duty assignment underneath the deputy administrator position. I would assume, and, you know, quite honestly, many elements of HR, Caitlyn and I work very closely together on, or other departments. So I expect that collaboration to continue, but the point person on HR matters would continue to be the deputy administrator. But collaboration would still be expected,
Multifunctional.
right?
So that was my question. Aaron?
My first question, so you might have said this, but election operations go under this new village clerk and then with assistance from the deputy clerk?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the clerk under this proposal is the statutory clerk for the village of Wanakee, so all functions that are clerk-related, licensing, records management, elections, all fall underneath that village clerk position and the deputy.
Gary?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
I guess my follow-up was that was like, then Renee, do you see the finance department having any like, I guess time-wise, the timing of elections, maybe like where it would be super heavy load? If that makes sense.
Well, I mean,
Overlapping in a new
just
way.
knowing based on the election help that we were able to provide in 2020 from our department, specifically Becca and Carla as account clerk too, it doesn't, we're heaviest at the very end of the year, December, maybe into January, in terms of overall, but I mean, the payroll, that's every other week. You know, we'll have to fit that in with the election pieces, but I don't foresee that that would be a difficulty.
And I'll just note that every other year, we have 2 and 4 year elections alternating, so on even years, there's always 4 elections, so that's February, which is a primary, April, which is the spring general, August, which is another primary, and November. Years like this year, 2021, we were done with elections in April, which kind of leaves, it's supposed to be time for us clerks to catch up and, you know, work on things like that. So just know that every other year, it fluctuates.
The other thing, well, two points. One, it's almost weird to talk about departments in this building because we all kind of collaborate and cross departmental lines on a continuous flow and offer assistance that way. But that aside, I would note that the past couple of years, and especially demonstrated during the presidential election, we did a really nice job, I think more than ever before, in engaging our poll working crew early in the process, even during the in-person voting process, in-person absentee. And I would see that being a continuing practice that would supplement the duties of the village clerk and deputy clerk during an ongoing absentee process, during the heat of that process. How many, there were times when this room was quite full, actually, with poll workers
We held,
during the day.
I think we had like 5 or 6 stations for voting in person, early absentee for November in this building.
Good.
Yeah, I guess right now.
Gary? Any questions?
Yeah, I just, more of a comment. I think with the job market as difficult as it is today, to retain quality employees, and I know we have a new step system in place that we've looked at the market. I want to make sure that, I mean, it sounds like we have an opening today, and now we're trying to fill a couple other openings that our pay, I think our benefits have always been good. I want to make sure our pay is in line with the market. We invest in people, and now they leave for great, better opportunities, which is great, because everybody wants to be able to advance. But I don't want to make sure we're not losing people because of the pay structure that we have today, because we've always been pretty thin on employees. They do great work for us, but when we lose them, it's it's going to take 6 months to get that person back up to speed. And I think I just want to make sure that we're in line with where we need to be pay-wise to retain good employees. But otherwise, what Todd's put together here, I'm fine with.
Nyla, any comments?
Fine.
Phil?
Fine.
Sam?
Since we're moving communications duties yet again, would that result in any reductions to the administration budget, or no?
Essentially was contained in the administration
Okay.
budget, because that was essentially the duty, well, it's not shown there, but the management intern was hired to focus on kicking off some new communication strategies. So it was following that same arc in the organization.
Okay.
Bill?
Well, mine is just that it doesn't seem very branched off. I mean, it seems like finance director is really everything.
Pardon me?
Finance director is basically doing everything.
Well, we talked about that earlier today. The village clerking function, and Caitlyn, I'll count on you to chime in. From this point down, from the point just above the village clerk down, I see as really being held within that portion of the branch, with Renee's primary additional task being that of supervision and evaluation, from just a supervisor position. I don't expect Renee's role in the function of the village clerk to change in any other way. But
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think the village clerk that we will hire will be, in a sense, a subdivision of finance. That person, the village clerk and the deputy, will take care of all clerk duties between the two of them. Renee is just providing that overarching department head level overview of performance evaluations, time off, things of that nature. But I think the type of candidate we are going to recruit for, and that our pay is going to recruit for, is going to give us the person who can handle the clerk duties kind of in their own subdivision of finance. Like clerk, Renee's not going to go and become a certified clerk in order to oversee this village clerk. If that helps you, Bill.
although I'd spill a few beans here, Bill, and share that included in this budget outcome, I'm proposing an additional step increase for us to offer to our extremely capable finance director in relation to the additional supervisory duties that she'd be responsible for.
Anything else, Bill? Okay, so, any other comments? Darren, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, and mine's like a half a voice, so I'm trying to pace myself. I guess that was one of my questions, concerns, was like, now we're asking more of Renee, although, capable, but I hope we're now, compensating for that to, reduce our, sorry. And now I'm blanking. Oh, is there any anticipation of, further, positions that we're anticipating in 3 years or so, where would they fall? I guess, where do we see us, needing more help? Because I know we got rid of the, guest service in the last budget we presented, but we were anticipating having one more person around to help staff that. So is that something we're then gonna bring back in 6 months or something?
You could take a first stab.
Yeah, so when we talk about front desk communications and oversight of that desk, I see it really being as a team environment with the clerk, the deputy clerk, and the deputy administrator. They're all going to be housed right here, at least in this building and in the new structure.
And executive assistant.
An executive assistant, I see them all sharing those duties, which is just as important for a deputy administrator and communications manager to know who's walking in, where they say. So they need to be in tune with that front desk to begin with. So I see it working out fine. I don't see any holes in that sort of stuff, because you're going to have a team. Plus, in Village Hall in general, we all take a responsibility for that front desk. It's all within our job descriptions to be able to step in there if someone's sick. And we all are such a great team up here that happens. So I don't foresee an issue right now with customer service in Village Hall.
If I had a prediction about staffing changes to this particular structure, I think the first one that may happen would relate to the way in which we engage other departments. we've had conversations in the past with EMS, for example, about being of greater support to them in their financial management process. I don't know if that's ever been talked about with the fire department, but I think at one point in the past, we were assisting with some finance, and even Wanakee Utilities may be expecting some staffing changes and the opportunity to collaborate as opposed to sort of staying within our own silos on certain functions that are somewhat universal. I wonder whether there's the opportunity for us to add in a position to provide support cross-organizationally. So in this case, I would imagine, possibly another finance person, or maybe re-separating out payroll functions and some other finance duties into a additional full-time person in finance. That's what I would predict. I think it would come about at a moment of opportunity when there is maybe a switch or something like what we're going through within one of those organizations I mentioned, where it's beneficial to all involved to collaborate. Do you see similar, or what else would you see in this, Renee?
Yeah, I mean, right now, we are, in finance, are holding our own with the, what we are responsible for, but if we had to take on more from another entity, that would be tricky.
Under this staffing
Right.
model.
Okay, any other comments? So Todd's looking for a thumbs up, I think is
Well,
what you said, or?
I think I've heard, for the majority, I've heard a general voice of support. I've also heard questions. What I'd like to offer is, if you have further questions, reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to spend time needed to address those. Posting a position itself doesn't necessarily guarantee a hiring. So we may initiate that process this week with the thought that before any hire is made, we will have completed the process of formally approving an organizational change. That I would expect in 2 weeks on the 15th.
All right, everybody's good with that? Yes? Okay, Caitlin?
Can I ask a question before we open up for public comment from the
Yeah.
public? Did you want to do 2 or 3 minute public comments?
Let's go with, we'll give you 3. I think that's fair. We'll do it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
All right.
Kathy Sheffield is the first.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Kathy Sheffield. I'm a Wanakee Village resident, and I'm also president of the library board. I'm here tonight to request that you consider allocating additional levy funds to the library in the 2022 budget for the purpose of promoting 2 longtime valued library employees. We at the library are well aware of the budgetary constraints that you're under and that the administration is under. And we know that these requests were omitted from the budget that you were presented because the administration was trying to help you achieve your budgetary goals. However, the library trustees would like to ask you to take a look at this and consider helping us achieve this. I'm not going to go into the details of the positions, but they are detailed in our initial budget request memo if you would like to refer to that. Basically, by creating these 2 expanded roles, it will allow us to retain 2 key employees that will go elsewhere for a full-time professional position if we can't provide that. And it will also allow us to better serve the community. When you look at libraries in Dane County that are serving populations of similar size to Wanakee, we actually have the fewest number of full-time professional librarians of any of those libraries. And as a result, we offer less programming to our patrons than many of those libraries because we just don't have the full-time librarians. So I think that this is like a 2-fold benefit. It helps us with the employer retention and also helps us serve the taxpayers better. The bottom line is to achieve these 2 promotions, we need $27,040. And we have taken a very close look at our operating budget. And there are some areas where we can make some temporary cuts to help make this happen this year. We can't take 27,000 out of our operating budget though. So we would love to have a discussion of how we can make this work. You know, as you're considering, as these numbers come in and you're seeing the final amounts for other things, if you have any possibilities of increasing our levy amount to help us achieve this number, we would greatly appreciate that consideration, and I think it would really help us serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Eldenfeld?
Thank you. I'm Jean Eldercrow. I also live in Wanakee and served on the library board for 14 years and just the immediate past president of the library board. I'm also here to ask the village board to reconsider reinstating the library board's request for promotions and salary increases for 2 professional staff members. These 2 librarians are longtime employees and key members in the library's future plans for growth. The current circulation manager has always played a very critical role in assuring high-quality materials and efficient customer service at the library. She's completed the coursework and will obtain her master's degree in library science from UW-Madison next month. She deserves recognition for her loyal service and her academic success. The second employee has been an extremely valuable staff member for many years and is highly skilled in technology, which she uses to develop library publicity across many platforms. She already possesses her master's degree. If her position is changed to a full-time one, as the library board requested, she would perform additional digital media tasks to increase the public's awareness of library programs and resources and how to effectively use these resources. In today's world, libraries need staff with exceptional technology skills, and we are fortunate to have such a person on our staff. When the new public library opened its doors in August of 19, circulation and the numbers of daily visitors skyrocketed. The library is successfully fulfilling the expectations that the village board, the library staff, and the patrons of the library hoped for the new building. Wanakee's population continues to grow, and the ways the public library can serve the community is growing exponentially. The library needs to attract and retain highly skilled and motivated employees. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Cindy Turner?
I'm Cynthia Turner, resident of Wanakee for 30 years, also on the library board for 18 years. I am repeating much of what you've just heard. We have employees who have served us well for a long time, now have attained a master's degree in library science. And I think, as we saw earlier this evening, we have a state-of-the-art library. We need to maintain state-of-the-art employees and state-of-the-art in programming. We are well on our way, but we need certainly to keep these people here with us and give our community the opportunity to expand the programming as we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Heimbach?
Some of my questions were answered. I just wanted to know about some of the increases that were happening, and I didn't realize the presentation was happening before the public comment, so that helped. I do have questions about the healthcare going up and how COVID has affected the cost of healthcare. Are we paying for COVID tests for employees who are not being immunized, and how is that affecting that? And how long is that going to go on for, if we are, or when will that become their responsibility for not getting the vaccinations? Thank you.
Do you want me to respond
Yeah,
to that? So through the federal government, there's still no cost for testing, so our health insurance is not picking up the cost for those tests.
Okay.
It is on the village board. They don't know this yet. It'll be on the village board's agenda at the first meeting in December to discuss that policy that you're referring to about vaccination or weekly testing of all of employees who are unvaccinated. So they will have that answer in December as to how long that policy will continue. But no, we are not paying for employees to be tested. It's still covered by the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
And I've told Caitlyn she can't leave until COVID goes away.
Yeah.
So, so we'll hope.
Linda Ashmore?
Thank for giving citizens a chance to weigh in on the budget. First, I question why the administrator's salary is almost doubled in the past 2 years. A new CDA department and director are hired, so there are fewer duties. Regular village staff are only getting 2% and 1% increases. I would like to see that large increase in the administrator's salary go towards funding the library promotions and retaining staff. And before, I had this before you did the presentation, but I wanted to see the communications position retained. So we kind of are covering that with that time. $150,000 is budgeted for an AV upgrade to Village Hall. I don't think we need a Cadillac version, and I hope it's bid out. Please consider more funding of WNC. They were funded this year through ARPA money, and I'd like to see a continuation of some funding for them in 2022. A possible WNC program would be to provide funding for people who want to live and work here, but can't afford both the security deposit and first month's rent. Across the board, I'd like to see more funding go to public works and less to administration. There's now a 5-year plan in place, which I appreciate, but if ARPA money could be used for water sewer upgrades as part of the road repairs, maybe some of those projects could be moved up. And this is a new proposal. I know everybody's like, save money, but I propose that, maybe not this budget, but at some point, we look at a green energy initiative for the village. Other municipalities are budgeting towards programs that reduce global warming. There was a program to plant rootstock trees that was proposed but never happened. We planted 3 trees on our terrace about 10 years ago, and now we're getting shade from them, which means we can run our air conditioning less. There's lots of older trees coming down in our neighborhood, so there's a need to replant them, and it's expensive. And my last item is regarding presenting the budget. Other communities are able to highlight significant changes to the budget areas and when the budget's presented. And I actually emailed Renee, and she gave me a nice response saying the software doesn't accommodate that right now. But if department heads would, do like a little paragraph saying, this is what we're proposing and why, that would really help as a citizen or even board members to understand what's going on with the budget. Thanks for listening.
I can address a couple questions. I'm not sure where you're getting the information about administrator's salary. Past 2 years, I've received the same adjustment as all other non-rep staff. So I'm not, you may be referencing the total bottom line in the administrator's budget. And if that's the case, as I explained to the board 2 weeks ago, that's related to a realignment of our budget categories. So in the midst of this past year, we certainly had some changes up here at the building. And that included our inspections department, our engineering department, and the creation of community development. So there was a robust rearrangement of the assignments of expenses under those various departments, which, and I won't fault you, Linda, in the budget on the bottom line of the admin department, made it appear as if the admin department was going wildly high in a change in expenses. What I can share with you, for example, my budget went from 140,407 to 352,404. What I can share is when you combine all those budgets that I mentioned, the net is a decrease of 1.6%. So while it appears that glut was in administration, really it was caused by realignment from other departments into as more appropriately allocated expenses. So I did explain that to the board a couple weeks ago, and I can see why you would see that on the bottom line of the admin budget.
I think page 4 had the administrator full-time or something listed, salary. That's where I was getting it from, about the budget.
And that may relate to the reallocation.
Right, because in the past, Todd, was allocated 50% to admin, 50% to economic development. So now with Tim being here, Todd is fully under the admin. So there's other areas that, other budget lines that went down, if that makes sense. Todd's allocation changed, nothing changed with his salary, other than the normal.
And then the last sheet of paper I have is for Robert McPherson.
Hi, yes. Robert McPherson. I do live in Wanakee. So I did have a few questions. In fact, I want to go back to that question about the budgeting on the administrator full-time and the economic development, because I'm looking at it's under community development as far as I'm aware from reading the PowerPoint, and I
Yes,
don't.
that department name changed this year.
Okay, so I'm assuming then what I see in there where it goes from the 84,000, that's Tim, then I'm assuming.
Right,
Okay.
Tim is also split, to inspection, so, there was a lot of changes in allocations to actually what people are responsible for.
Okay. So I have two requests from the public. One is it possible to get, I see that this PDF has Excel in the title name. Is it possible to get it in Excel for the public to manipulate themselves, even if we can't get something from it, out of there? Secondary question is it possible with the different areas to know, I'm not looking for staff salaries, but how many staff actually comprise those areas and if they are split across multiple areas? Because it's very hard for the public to know. I know we're kind of talking about how the sausage is made, but if the public is to review what's on there, it's very difficult for us to know, to look at it. Just like what just happened with that exchange, like it doesn't appear readily apparent to the public that Todd is split across two areas or that Tim's split across two areas, and so it makes it hard from the public's perspective to review that. That's just a general ask. I know I might be asking for the impossible, so that's fine. I did have a question. There is there seems to be a continuously large gap between the budget and the actual collected revenues for intergovernmental intergovernmental charges for police. We answered that question. That's going to get answered next week. Sorry, I was going
I want
last.
to make sure, could you ask it again, Robert? I just want to make sure I get the question correct.
About the staffing?
With
Gap?
the police gap?
Yeah, the intergovernmental charges for police. The budget seems to constantly be double what we actually collect, and it's actually even, I think it goes up a little bit in the budget for 2022.
So the reason, so that is for the resource officer at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so when school was closed, for different semesters, that resource officer went back just to being a regular police officer, and so the school district did not
Is not
pay
paying
us.
for it. Got
So
it.
it's half because of how the semesters fell when the school was closed.
I mean, not in person,
Sorry, yes.
when they were virtual
Not
learning.
virtual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it was the second semester of one school year, the first semester of the next school year. So
Yes,
that's
that
why
happens.
they're,
Yeah, can only see 2020, not 2019, probably would have not asked that
Yes,
question.
that-
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm sure my timing's all messed up since we're having back and forth here, so I
Okay.
apologize. Okay, that question I answered. I asked about staff for cost center. The public, actually, as a representative of the public, I'm kind of curious from the board's perspective what they're going to do about the shortage on the library, since we know that, and I'm not talking about what everybody's been talking about tonight, I'm actually supportive of that, but just on the sale of the old library property and the impact that had on the budget. I know it's actually gone into in detail in the budget, but I'm just curious to see if the public can get an opinion from the board about that. From my perspective, just had a question about, there are some TIDs that appear to be in the red. I'm sure that won't get addressed tonight. And then the other question is, an ask, is it possible that we can consider funding for the Housing Betterment Fund that actually comes from the general tax levy? And the reason I ask that is the unassigned fund continually seems to be above the policy amount of the maximum of 25%. We're at 29. I know that it's weird to say we should spend money to get that down, but it just seems like if we're putting money into the tax levy as taxpayers, that we should see some return to the community in that area, and maybe consider using it for that. So that's the extent of my questions.
Thank you.
Let's see, just a couple quick comments. Thanks, Robert. One thing, we do have a joint review board meeting coming up this Thursday. We'll be recording it, so you're welcome to watch or you're welcome to attend. And the purpose of that board meeting is to do a full review, audit review of all of our, eight of our districts. The joint review board will be here, including school board rep, Tech College, county, and it's open to the public. But again, we'll record that. That's of all opportunities, that's gonna be the perfect one to hear the full picture and full story of the current condition of every single district that
Can
we
I also
have.
add to it? The packet and reports are already made available online. They were online last week. So you can read those reports before you even try and watch or attend the meeting.
Our financial advisor will be here to assist in the report. So that'd be a good time too to the extent that the Joint Review Board will afford the opportunity for public questions. I'm not sure if the board will. That's a choice of the JRB. But if not during the meeting, even after the meeting, our rep from Ellers would be able to help answer questions too, that we can't. I think the other questions he had, all good questions, and might take us some time to take a peek at. One note I'll say regarding the splitting of salaries, that is confusing, and frankly, when I look at the budget, I usually just close it and I ask Renee, how is this one split? Because that is challenging. We actually demoed a product just a month ago that I'd like to see the village consider supporting in the coming year that would essentially create a transparent window into the entire range of our budget, including staff allocations in as clear a way as I've ever seen before in my professional career. So that may be a presentation in the near future. Some communities are actually
I was just gonna say, I know of a
utilizing our.
community that uses it right now, Sun Prairie.
That was kind of
Hey.
why I was asking.
Hey, remain in corner.
Sorry.
You're still working, you're still working for Wanakee.
Well, show us why you're going.
I would say an opportunity may be presented if you care to. Some communities are utilizing ARPA dollars to support additional technologies that afford transparency to the public. So those access opportunities are something that some communities have considered with ARPA. So within, over the course of the next year, I'd like to bring that product to your awareness with the thought that maybe we could transition at some point. And I think that would help questions that you have and the rest of the public right down the line.
And I'm not trying to engage in back and forth here, but I mean, I only ask because as the public, I mean, I'm hugely supportive of, like staff cost increase, like to keep up with cost of living and things like that, and, with inflation being as high as it is. And it's helpful for our perspective because, we see the number go up or we see the number go down, and it's like, well, did somebody leave, or is this, they got more efficient because they found a way to do something like that? And that's not necessarily something that the public can easily get without sifting through literally hours of meetings, which I don't mind doing that. I've had to do it for other areas, but I mean, asking a general person just to go do that, like, they're just gonna be like, it's kind of like you said, Todd, they're just gonna close it and say, okay, somebody just tell me what I need to know, rather than look. And we as the public don't really have the resources to come in and do that. I know that you guys make yourselves available to the public, but it's hard to do that, so.
I think those are very fair points.
Okay.
That was it.
Anybody else that would like to address on our budget? Speak now or forever hold your peace. with this
Until
one.
the public hearing.
Yes.
Until the public hearing,
Yeah.
for the public
One-
comments. Go ahead.
One thing I'd like to share with those who brought up,
I just want to ditto.
Can you say your name, please?
Sandy Essie, I just want to ditto anything that any library supporter said.
Okay.
Ditto, D-I-T-T-O.
Well, that wasn't your last name. Your last name was Essie, right? Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good seg, oh, she left. I wanted to say that I consider myself in the category of library supporter, as much as my proposed budget doesn't scream that. I would really enjoy sharing the story of my appreciation for the library industry, which I've come to appreciate over the course of my career in really tremendous ways, and the passion and drive that I put into our own project here, as well as my appreciation for our staff. So I do want to put myself in that category. I won't fault anybody for disagreeing tonight. I would also say, I let everybody know that the administrator's proposed budget does include a $61,000 increase in the library levy for operating expenses and building expenses, which actually nets down because the building cost just slightly decreased. So all in all, the existing budget is a $61,000 increase. It's a 4.15% increase over the prior year levy for library purposes. So the library most certainly was not ignored in the administrator's budget. I've already talked about the grinding process of the budget. There's things that I regretted that I could not incorporate in order to achieve the goals that were assigned to me. But by no means does that take me out of the category of library advocate. I'm right there with all of you. All right, thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else? All right, we're good.
Are we allowed to ask a question?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes, if I could say, if there are questions specific that you'd like to direct to staff in order to give us further instruction or information that you'd like brought back to help you with decision-making in 2 weeks, we would, if you'd allow, Chris, we'd welcome that tonight, or certainly welcome that on a one-on-one basis over the course of the next 2 weeks.
Is that my question?
This goes back to my whole thing
It's
before
okay.
about public comments, and we don't generally speak on this. So I think it should be a matter of any board members who have questions about anything tonight should direct it to staff, and staff will respond to you.
That's fine.
Is that fair with everybody?
That's fine.
Everybody good? Okay. All right. New business. Discuss and take action on resolution. By the way, thank you to all who are here tonight in major public comments. We appreciate them. New business. Discuss and take action on resolution describing ward boundaries for the purpose of defining voting districts for the village of Wanakee.
Great. So census data from 2020, as we probably all know, was largely delayed due to COVID-19. Typically, the state receives our our census data in July 1st. That was delayed till September this year. So because of this, there's a very scrunched deadline for municipalities to redistrict our voting wards. So we, as the Clerk's Department, has been working under this compressed timeline to ensure redistricting plans are ready for April 2022. Boundary lines must be adopted by December 1st, 2021, when candidates start collecting signatures for their upcoming elections. The Dane County has asked municipalities to have their ward plans adopted no later than November 5th, 2021, so that they can plan their supervisory districts. Included in the packet was the proposed ward plan, reflecting the census data we received in 2022. The official 2020 population of the village of Wanakee is 14,887. Since all village trustees and the village president are voted at large, the placement of ward lines becomes important for voting districts where people go and vote than it does for none of you are voted by a district. So we look at these ward plans more as where are people voting and where are they going. There are parameters and conditions that we must follow as a municipality when we are redistricting. There's a list of them in your packet. The nice thing is in Wisconsin we have a computer software called the WISE LRS that the state has provided to municipalities that helps you follow all these rules. So it's not like me sitting there counting census blocks within these areas. It's a pretty intuitive software package that we're allowed to use to break these down. So if you have any questions about that process, let me know. So as in the attached resolution, you will see staff is recommending community we have two polling locations. Wards 1 through 5 is serviced out of the community rooms in the village center. Wards 6 through 12 vote out of the gym in the village center. I think as our community continues to grow, the congestion at the village center is an issue. I hear it from voters every single election. I can't find a parking spot. So I think we're to the point that we need to split those polling locations out of the same building. From an election administration standpoint, that becomes a little bit more difficult for the clerk's department. We now have to, help two places. But I think as we continue to grow, we need to alleviate some of that congestion at the village center and kind of split up our two polling locations. Luckily, we have a great partner in the library. That building was built with the idea that someday a polling place would go there. So I'm proposing, and it's included in this resolution, that we move wards 1 through 5 to be voting at the library. And wards 6 through 11, you'll see that we got rid of one ward through this redistricting process, would continue to vote at the village center. When I was doing this, I tried to think of an easy way that if someone calls, where do I vote? Do you live north of Main or west of Q Century? you vote at the library. That's kind of the easiest way to help us tell people where, you know, do you live north of Main? Yep, go to the library. Do you live, you know, west of Century/Q? Go to the library. Everyone else in that middle part, they continue to vote in the gym at the Village Center. So that's included in this proposal. If you were to adopt this resolution defining our wards, then the clerk's office is gonna move towards implementing this polling place change through the state system and then eventually communication to all of our voters.
Okay,
And the library is willing to be a polling place. You might not be willing after next year, but, you know, it becomes a little bit crazy, but I just think it's a wise move for our community, especially as we continue to grow.
comments, questions, board members? Or look for a motion?
Make a motion to approve the resolution describing ward boundaries for the purpose of defining voting districts for the Village of Wanakee.
Motion by Gary Hertzberg, second by Bill Random. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Adjourn.
I'll second it.
I'm gonna say motion to Bill and I'm gonna give a second to Nyla. Any other comments?
Sam.
Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Good job, Bill.